I'd like to tell you how I completely ruined my entire family. And the worst part, I even paid to have it happen. It was cheap too. It only cost me $99. You might be asking yourself, why on earth would someone pay to have their whole world ruined? And I'll tell you all about it now. It's really upsetting, and I still can't believe everything that happened. Truth be told, I didn't do it all alone. My sister Ava helped me with the whole plan. I was sort of the mastermind behind the whole disaster, and she just helped me pull it through. We never thought things would go so far. Now, for you to understand what happened and how my family fell apart, you need to know a bit about my childhood. When I was born, I was mom and dad's only child. I had no other brothers and sisters, and I was really spoiled. They loved me to bits and bought me everything I wanted. It was awesome, of course. I had a really normal and happy childhood. Mom and Dad had both worked, and they did well for themselves. Mom was far busier than Dad, though. She was a really successful doctor and was well-renowned around the world. That meant that she had to go to conferences abroad and was always so busy. She left the house at least twice a week on emergency calls. They seemed to think that this was perfectly normal, so it never seemed odd to me at all. My dad was a real estate agent and traded stocks in his free time. He made a really good living, and we could afford an amazing house downtown. Now, you might be asking yourself, why on earth my mom's busy schedule is important, but it'll become clear pretty soon. Now, when I was 4, my mom announced she was pregnant again. You might think that I was super jealous since I was so spoiled, but that wasn't the case. I was so happy. I wanted to have a little brother or sister so badly, and had begged for one for years. I even asked it as my birthday present. A few months later, my baby sister Ava was born. I was so happy, I couldn't believe I finally had a sister to play with. Dad explained that it was my responsibility to be the best older brother possible and always protect Ava. I took this responsibility really seriously. Ava was the best little sister in the world, and I was determined to always look out for her. She was even allowed to play with me and my friends all the time. I didn't find her annoying and didn't mind that she wanted to hang out with me as other siblings do. We were really close, and as she grew older, I took it upon myself to teach her everything I knew. So I taught her how to climb trees and to play with a ball and even do math exercises. She was really clever too, and so she skipped a grade and then another one. So she ended up being only 2 grades behind me instead of 4. My parents were really proud of her, and they loved how I always wanted to look after little Ava. Now, the thing is, people never believed us when we told them we were brother and sister. Everyone thought we were really just good friends and that we just called each other siblings because we were so close. We had to insist and insist before anyone believed we were telling the truth. Kids at our school joked and told us that we were probably adopted. Ava and I laughed about this and shrugged it off. We never believed it might be true since Mom and Dad would have told us about it long ago. We were all really close, even if Mom worked late often and had to take long trips abroad. I didn't worry too much about this, or at least I didn't until I had a really bad idea and a $100 bill in my pocket. Another odd thing was that neither Ava or I looked anything like my dad, and I mean nothing like him. He has some rather unique features, and neither of us share them. I mean, sure, it's possible that we take after our mom, but it's still super weird, right? Ava always joked about the fact that she made up stories about who our real father would be. She made up the silliest stories and made me laugh every single time. She claimed that there was an astronaut in space that had my big blue eyes and a sailor lost at sea that had her tiny nose. We would try and outdo each other, making up the craziest backstories for these imaginary men. What we never considered was that everything we joked about was closer to the truth than we could have ever imagined. Sure, my real father isn't an astronaut or anything of the sort, but neither is he a real estate agent and he isn't married to my mom. But I'm kind of skipping ahead, so I'll go back to the way things unraveled. Anyways, one day I was browsing online when suddenly I ran into this ad for a DNA test. You know, the type that doesn't only tell you about your mom and your dad, but also your heritage, like many ancestors ago. Yeah, that's the one. I thought it was kind of neat, and also a way to finally put those silly rumors to rest. If someone else joked that Ava or I were adopted, then I could joke right back telling them that I had us tested, and we totally weren't. It seemed like a great idea, and it was only $99, a real bargain if you ask me. Now, I was feeling really curious, but also a tiny bit guilty. Would my mom and dad get upset? I mean, I knew they were my real parents, but they might think I was doing it because I really had doubts. My mom and dad are awesome, and they really love me and my sister. Would it be mean to get this test done? So I decided to speak to Ava about it. She thought it was a great idea and so much fun, and it wasn't mean at all. We could show our parents what our ancestry looked like and where we all came from. It was a neat present and a fun conversation starter. It would also be such a witty answer whenever someone teased us about looking completely different from one another. We ended up agreeing that it was a good idea, but the problem was how to execute it. After all, we couldn't just walk up to our parents and ask them for a swab, or the whole surprise would go to waste. So we began discussing how to get this plan to sail smoothly without my parents suspecting a thing. It wasn't as easy as it sounds, and we came up with all kinds of silly ideas. Many made no sense and were promptly scratched from the test. Finally, Ava came up with a great plan. Since we needed their saliva, there's an easy way of tricking them into giving us a sample without asking for it. We could just grab their glasses of water and run into our bedroom with it. That would make them suspect something was amiss. But if we needed to keep plastic cups for some reason, we'd be free of suspicion. Ava was a really good cook. She loved experimenting in the kitchen with different recipes. So when she said she came up with a brand new juice recipe, my parents immediately believed her. It was genius. We had already ordered the kit and waited for it to arrive. Ava prepared the juice, a few different samples to make it seem legit, and finally we walked into the living room with a few different plastic cups. We had my mom and dad try all of them and then asked them for their opinion. My sister pretended to take notes and then rushed out of the room with the cups in tow. I explained that she was going to modify the recipe according to their opinions. They laughed and thought it was just Ava being Ava. I went into the room and saw my sister already taking saliva samples from the cups. She smiled at me, and I really thought she was brilliant. Everything had gone according to plan. Then Ava went back, making little changes to the juice so that her parents thought she was really working on her recipe instead of lying through her teeth. Our plan worked to perfection. While Ava was busy sweet-talking my parents, I went into the bathroom and swabbed the inside of my mouth. When everything was ready, I mailed it as the instructions detailed I should, and then it was time to wait. It took almost 3 weeks for the results to be in. I was so excited. My sister Ava wasn't at home, but I simply couldn't wait for her to arrive. I opened the envelope and began reading. Imagine my surprise when I read that my father wasn't my real father. I was stunned. I kept reading that sentence over and over again, and I couldn't understand how this could be happening. I immediately called Ava on her phone. She was at a friend's house, but I asked her to come back home immediately. She rushed over, super concerned about me because she could tell I had been crying. When I told her about what happened, she couldn't believe it. She read the results over and over again, just like I had about a half an hour before. We needed to know the whole truth. So before confronting our parents, we ran the test on her as well. We hadn't actually thought it would be necessary to waste another $99 on Ava when they already had my sample, since we were supposed to be siblings, but apparently we had to do it. So we waited another few weeks. You can imagine how anxious I was. My mom and dad didn't understand why I seemed so upset at them all the time, and of course I refused to tell them. When Ava's results arrived, we were stunned. Not only wasn't Mom's husband our biological father, but we didn't even have the same dad. We were half-siblings. That meant that Mom had gotten pregnant from 2 different men, and neither of them was her spouse. Now that we knew the whole truth, we finally confronted our parents. Dad looked absolutely shocked. It was clear he knew nothing about it. Mom began sobbing and finally admitted the truth. She let us know that in the congresses she traveled to, she sometimes would go on dates with doctors from all over the world. We knew she had cheated on Dad at least twice, but it was clear now that she had been unfaithful so many more times. And those late-night emergency calls? Well, yeah, some of them were real. After all, Mom really is a doctor. But some of them were just dates she had and didn't want Dad to know about. You can imagine how badly this messed our family up. Dad almost immediately asked for a divorce, and my mom didn't have the guts to argue. After everything she'd done, the least she could do was make it easy for Dad to walk away. Neither Ava nor I wanted to live with our mom after what she had done. We knew our biological fathers were doctors, but we didn't want to learn anything more about them. Our dad had raised us and loved us so much. He was the only father we needed. Dad told us we could move in with him. He said that he loved us no matter what, and he still considered us his children. That was such a relief. We immediately moved in with him. I haven't spoken to my mom since that horrible night. I still can't believe I ruined my family with a lousy $100. Thanks for watching. What's the worst secret your parents kept from you? Let us know in the comments.